Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Anthology, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and if this is your first time listening, Anthology is one man's examination of The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer. Each podcast, I share my first impressions, analysis, and overall thoughts on Rod Serling's iconic series, one episode at a time. I also cover modern anthology science fiction shows such as Black Mirror and the upcoming Jordan Peele Twilight Zone reboot in bonus episode review series. You can find more of Anthology as well as a full episode archive at anthologypod.com. And if you want to contact me, you can use the Facebook page at facebook.com/anthologypod, tweet me at OVAnthologypod, or send an email to matt@obsessiveviewer.com. Okay, so like I said, this is a bonus episode. Today I'm going to be discussing Bandersnatch, which is the first interactive movie from Netflix and Black Mirror. It premiered on the streaming platform on December 28th, 2018. That was kind of released in lieu of Season 5, which Charlie Brooker has said fairly recently, that Season 5 is imminent. I don't know when that's going to be. Hope to God that it's after The Twilight Zone finishes up on CBS All Access, just so I can have some, less stress on my recording. But it was Bandersnatch was released on December 28th, 2018. It's an interactive film where you make choices that dictate what the characters do, and the plot kind of unfolds at your whim to an extent. Kind of very highly publicized once it was dropped on the platform in December, and recently there is a Bear Grylls show that's going to be interactive. It's called, I think, You vs. Wild, where you make choices and he does crazy things. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not that interested in it. To be honest, this entire experience, I was just kind of okay with it. Well, I'll get into my review and everything, but I thought it was just okay, but I'd much rather take a Black Mirror season rather than an interactive film. So let's dive into this review. Plot summary, according to IMDb, is in 1984, a young programmer begins to question reality as he works to adapt a fantasy novel into a video game. Bandersnatch stars Fionn Whitehead as Stefan Butler, Craig Parkinson as Peter Butler, and Will Poulter as Colin Rittman, who Will Poulter was, he's in, not Hunger Games, Maze Runner, I think. I think he was also in Detroit with, Catherine Bigelow's Detroit movie. But anyway, after Bandersnatch came out, I think he got some flack because his hair, like he has blonde hair in Bandersnatch, and it led to him just leaving social media. I don't know if he came back yet or not, but, the internet's shitty. People suck. Like, who can, I hate that. I really do. Writer for Bandersnatch is Charlie Brooker, and I have some quotes of some things that he said regarding Bandersnatch. So this is per, the one show on BBC he was interviewed, Charlie Brooker was, and he was basically saying that, Netflix approached him and Annabelle Jones to make an interactive story through Black Mirror. So he said, quote, "Yeah, we had a meeting, and myself and Annabelle Jones, the co-showrunner, and we nodded and smiled and said, that's very interesting. And then we went out of the room and said, no way." So when the hosts asked him further, why they were so resistant to it, he said, quote, "Well, I think we thought it would be a gimmick, and I used to be a video games reviewer, and there were a lot of games with full motion video in the 90s. Some were quite good, but there'd often be a pause in the scenes which could knock you out of the story." So what eventually kind of changed his mind about it was that, he said, "And then annoyingly, I had an idea a few weeks later which would only work as an interactive story." So that's kind of the genesis of Bandersnatch. And then in Huffington Post UK, he commented on some of the criticisms that Bandersnatch faced and some of the reactions that it got off of the internet. So he said, quote, "There's also some people that are like, I don't want to make decisions. I don't want to do any of that. Well, fuck off then. Do something else. And then there's some people who think, oh, it's too simple as a game, or games have done this before. Well, this isn't on a gaming platform. It's on Netflix. I'm well aware of what a computer game is. Thanks." And he also addressed criticisms about why it doesn't have like an option for a traditionally happy ending, like San Junipero or whatever. And he said, "Have they seen Black Mirror?" And they commented on there not being a simple or coherent message. And Charlie Brooker said, quote, "I suppose we do try not to go, this is what the message of the story is. And within this, it's so disparate, deliberately so, that's almost the point." And then he said, so it's a bit Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There's branches where he discovers he's an actor in a Netflix show. You can't have that and put in an emotive story where he dies as a young boy on a train and have one coherent message between the two. By the way, I'm going to be spoiling Bandersnatch, guys. Yeah, and also kind of, in a side note of that, when I referenced season 5 of, Black Mirror being imminent, there was just a casting announcement recently that said, Anthony Mackie, is going to be in season 5, so that's cool. Anyway, director for Bandersnatch is David Slade, who previously directed Metalhead in season 4. And as I said, I'm going to be spoiling Bandersnatch. It's a really tricky thing to review because, you know, people watch it once, they get a different experience than what I've experienced. I've watched it 3 times and I've tried to go down different routes and different paths, but I know that there's stuff that I haven't uncovered yet. And to be honest, I think I've gotten my use out of it. Like, I don't know if I'll be compelled to do another one, or another round of it, but I mean, there's some kind of paths that I'm kind of intrigued by, but for the most part, I think that the kind of story itself is lacking, when in comparison to the rest of Black Mirror's, offerings. So I don't know if I'll ever really get around to doing like a full, like, do every single path you can take. But I did my best, guys. So my first viewing of this was in December. It was December 28th, 2018. I didn't really keep notes about it, but I did write a review on Letterboxd, which, by the way, just shameless plug. If you are on Letterboxd and you're listening to this, Letterboxd, by the way, letterboxd.com, it is a website that is kind of a social media site for people who love films, and you can log the movies you watch, you can post reviews, interact with people, comment on other reviews. Really great, amazing website. And we actually have a deal at Obsessive Viewer Podcast that we can give out a free pro membership once per month. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you have a Letterboxd account, and you want a free pro membership, which gives you stats and some extra features on the website, shoot me an email at matt@obsessiveviewer.com, and the first one to send me an email will get the free pro membership. Just send me an email with your Letterboxd username, and maybe follow me on Letterboxd too. It's Obsessive Viewer on Letterboxd, and first one that sends me an email will get a pro membership. So, speaking of Letterboxd, my review, so basically my first viewing of Bandersnatch back in December, on Letterboxd I rated it 3.5 stars out of 5, and I'm not going to read my whole review or anything, but just, here's my opening one. My opening paragraph is, I don't know if I'd call Bandersnatch revolutionary exactly. The format was seamless and the choice responses felt natural, but I don't know if I'd necessarily want to see more interactive storytelling like this outside of the Black Mirror brand. Bandersnatch feels like an experience unique to Black Mirror. Then I also went on to say, deep down I was hoping the choices and reactions in Bandersnatch would go even further, not necessarily darker, but in my first run of it, I was so engaged with certain things that I wish paid off a little better. And what's kind of funny about that is that by its simple nature, I can't say for certain that they don't pay off, because there could be certain choices that I could make that would lead to unlocking those kind of payoffs and everything. So I can't really say for certain that that's a definitive criticism of the movie, but it's a criticism of my first experience with it, I guess. And so I don't know, on a conceptual level, I really like this idea of interactive films within Black Mirror, because Black Mirror is a technological apocalyptic dystopian viewpoint based in technology, and this is something that Bandersnatch plays with this concept a lot, or a fair amount. That it's just kind of, like I said, it's unique to Black Mirror. I don't know how they could do more, if they should do more. I don't really want them to do more, but how they could organically do more. But out of the gate, this first one, this one that they did just felt slightly lacking just because it felt like the experience was more tailored toward the choice aspects and the branching timelines and branching narratives. And by concentrating on that, they kind of I guess the storytelling kind of fell a little bit by the wayside, because we have all of these different branching paths. And like last night, my third overall time watching it, I decided I'm just going to completely avoid the mom stuff, and that just kind of felt like kind of an empty kind of story for me when I was watching it that way. And yeah, it's first of all, it's really difficult to review this because I have notes for my second and third viewings, and then overall notes that overlap each other. This is a mess. But anyway, let's go into the experience of Bandersnatch, like the story and everything. I like the concept of a programmer, computer developer, or game developer guy being obsessed with this fantasy novel that's a choose your own adventure, and using that to create a game. As you go deeper into it, you find out that the creator of Bandersnatch, the book, went crazy and kept seeing demons and murdered his wife and decapitated her. And like that's good backstory. That's interesting and everything. My first and third experiences with it, I ended up murdering my dad. And one of the coolest parts of the entire experience was seeing that like it goes back to if you avoid prison, if you chop up the body instead of burying the body, it'll show him it'll show Stefan just working in his room, and then you'll see his dad's head just sitting on a shelf. That was a really cool thing. I liked that a lot. But one thing that I kind of noticed was that, or one thing that kind of bugged me, I should say, early on, it kind of permeated throughout the rest of the experience, was that there's certain things that you can make choices on, but if you make the wrong choice, it prompts you to start over again. And that felt kind of cheap to me. I understand that it's gotta be difficult to create this experience and make it as fluid as they did. And it is a very fluid kind of experience when you do make those choices that it kind of wants you to make. And the way that Stefan starts to react to the choices you make is very interesting. And I love that aspect of it. I'll talk about that in a bit. But like when you're given the choice of either give Tuckersoft the rights to the game and have them be able to create it and a collaborative effort and put it out at Christmas, or refuse the deal and work from home, like if you choose to accept it, like Colin is just like, sorry mate, wrong path, and then it starts you over and you have to do that again. And it's like it kind of defeats the purpose to a small extent. However, when you go back to Tuckersoft and everything, like Colin has this weird, like, knowing dialogue with you saying like, oh, what path did you choose? What music did you listen to? Like what, it's all connected, like just cryptic shit that was okay. But it's still like, even with that element of it, like you still can only really choose to work from home. Like you can't, like there's no branch of the narrative where you're working in the Tuckersoft office with a bunch of people working on your game. So like, what's the point of giving you the choice of that if there's no option for that? And it's kind of like when you reach the end of it, a certain end of the movie, it does say, like, I think it's after you've successfully murdered your dad and chopped up the body instead of burying it. Because if you bury it, then the dog digs it up and you go to prison. But if you chop it up, then it's, no one knows, until like years later. But, if you chop them up and you go and talk to the therapist, she's like, how are you doing? You're just like, I'm okay. I'm great. And, my dad's visiting my aunt and everything, and it's great. And he says something about how we have the illusion of choice. I think I may have written it down. Let me check. Okay, I didn't write it down, but basically he says something to the effect of he is at peace and he recognized that we have the illusion of choice, and that even if we believe that we have choice, it's not really an actual like choice that we can make and everything. He's basically saying that like we as the viewer don't really have the power that we assume we have in this, because he has overcome it to an extent. I guess. I don't know. But to kind of leapfrog off of that, I did like how it was how the character started to recognize that he wasn't in control. And I really thought that was the strongest bit of Bandersnatch, was how he realizes that he isn't in control and he fights back against us. And like, I thought that was an incredibly clever idea, and something that I wish would have been explored more, or could have been explored more within this format. Like, if that was the focal point of it, I would have been floored by it, because it's really interesting, and like having him interact with us would have been so cool to see like more often. Like, I love the Netflix thing. Let's talk about the Netflix thing. That was such a joy. It was such a fun kind of thing. Like, there's an option of when he asks like us, like, I know you can hear me, like, tell me something, like what's going on. And we tell him we're watching him on Netflix, and then we try to explain it further, but he doesn't understand. So he goes to his therapist and he explains to her. And then there's the option of, like, the therapist says, if you really are just in a show and you want to be, that's for entertainment purposes, don't you think you would be a more interesting character? Like, you're not very interesting. Wouldn't you want more entertainment? And, you get the option of yes or fuck yeah. If you choose yes, they start fighting, and then you get the option of either throwing, jumping out of the window, or throwing something, I think, or fighting the therapist. If you choose to go out the window, the scene cuts and it's revealed that you're in a set on Netflix and that they're making a movie. But if you choose to fight, it's this big whole thing. It's silly, it's fun, it's a fun side quest, I guess, and it's a fun meta thing. But then I think both of those options, they just reset you and you go back to where you were before and make different choices, and it's okay. But the other option is the white bear option, where you can, instead of saying Netflix, it just shows the white bear symbol, and then that leads you to get into your dad's office, and there's some cool stuff that's revealed there. Like, I have to commend Netflix and Charlie Brooker and all the team at Black Mirror, because this is a very cleverly done thing. Like, this is a very innovative. I just said in my first review that it's not innovative per se, but it's a very unique experience, and I can understand why this was released instead of season 5, because the amount of work that had to be put into this is astonishing. I will say that even though I said that I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not there should be more, I really wish that there was this option was done for playtest last season. I think that could have been really cool. Or was that last season or was that season 3? I don't remember. But anyway, or if they did like a playtest-esque movie but have it be interactive, I think that could be really cool. But anyway, and another thing about that is that there's some really mundane choices early on, and I actually talked to Tiny about this, my friend Tiny of Obsessive Viewer fame. He was supposed to be on this episode with me, and we were supposed to kind of talk it out on here, but unfortunately he had some work obligations, and we couldn't get it taken care of. And I have to get this episode out before, like, it has to come out this week, because next week is the Twilight Zone. So I can't have a bonus episode dangling out there while I have bonus episodes waiting for Twilight Zone. And to be frank, Twilight Zone is more important than Black Mirror, especially to you guys, I'm sure. So, anyway, I had messaged Tiny last night, and he said, let's see. So I had asked him, I told him like, hey, I think I'm just going to go ahead and record this solo because I need to get it out soon. And then he said, that's cool. I tried to watch it today and fell asleep. I was kind of bored with it. And then we ended up having more of a conversation about it. He said, he wasn't thrilled with the interactive thing. He thought that he would only have to make like 3 to 4 decisions the whole time. And he was, trying to have a snack while he watched it and had to keep stopping to make selections. First world problems. He also said that I just didn't find it that engaging. Plus, you could make a pick and it would just end up sending you back to make the other one. Kind of pointless in my book. I give them a ton of credit for trying something new, though. So I told him that I hope that he finishes it because there are some really interesting places that it goes, but I totally get his point. And that's one of the things that's kind of challenging about it is because you get the opening scene where like the opening decisions are choosing what cereal to eat for breakfast, and that dictates what ad is played later when you're watching the documentary. And it's and then you have to have a choice between the music selection that he listens to on the bus, and it's like it's mundane. One thing about the music though that I think is interesting is that I could see this being an interesting format for Netflix to do more interesting things. Like I could see it being really interesting in the way that like imagine going through and watching a movie, like starting a movie, you're introduced to the characters and then they select what music they listen to. And by doing that, you are selecting what genre you're watching. Like say you want it to be like a romantic comedy. So you pick this like indie rock song for them to listen to, or if you wanted to turn into a horror movie or a thriller, you play this ominous music and everything, like, and have them listen to it, and like that dictates the tone that it sets. I think that could be really interesting and innovative, but I didn't really necessarily get that experience or that vibe from this particular movie. So in my original review on Letterboxd, I did mention that I got a huge kick out of all the Easter eggs for Black Mirror stuff. And while in that first viewing I did get a kick out of it, it wore pretty thin on repeat viewings. Like, I like the Metalhead and Nosedive thing, being the titles of games with slightly different spellings. I like that because it's fun, it's cheeky. And then I liked the, well, when I originally wrote my review on Letterboxd, I liked the way that the movie repurposed the white bear symbol, because it fits well. Like, it's repurposed as a symbol of divergent timelines and divergent choices. And it's something that, Jerome F. Davies was obsessed with when he was making Bandersnatch the book, which I totally get that. And it's cool that this symbol that is from all the way back in the early days of Black Mirror can be reused and repurposed for this. The kind of, I don't know if I'd say problem that I have with it, because it's not a problem I have with it, is that like it made me wonder, like, does that mean that Jerome F. Davies created the idea for the White Bear National Correctional Park or whatever? And then my follow up to that is, do I even care? Because it's been documented in this podcast that I don't really care about the different theories about interconnected storylines and stuff, because it's just not my bag. It's not what I want out of the show. There are a couple other Easter eggs though. The doctor's name is Dr. Haynes, and on the door you see that her name is Dr. R. Haynes, so it could be a nice little reference to Rollo Haynes from Black Museum. And also the medical facility that she's in is called San Juniper's Medical Facility, which could be an intentional reference to San Junipero, but it could just be a coincidence. So, like I said, I like the way that Stefan deals with the compulsion. Like, he has that feeling that he's not in control, and by extension, it gives the viewer a sense of control and makes us feel kind of tethered to him, and it makes us feel kind of godlike, and I liked that. I thought that was cool. And if you go into, what I like about that is that it's a connection to the character that you don't really get from other media, and I like that a lot. So there's a whole side quest thing where you follow Colin down the street outside of the doctor's office, and then he gives you drugs and you trip a little bit, and then it eventually leads to, again, another situation where, I don't know, I guess this is more acceptable because it's a video game kind of thing, but basically it leads to you two on the balcony of a high-rise apartment block, and he is explaining to you all of these things about like how, there's alternate timelines, and if you die, then you'll just come back, it's fine. Just saying all this crazy shit, and then it gives you the choice of either you jumping or him jumping to prove the point. And like if you jump, obviously that's the end of it, and then it circles back and you come back and you tell him to jump, and if he jumps, he kind of disappears from the rest of the movie, and there's not much, like there's no follow-up with that. It's weird. I'll get to that in just a second, because I do want to talk about the actual drug trip scene. I really liked that. That's one of the other high points of the movie, is that there's this kind of vibrance to it. Like there's this energy to it that I really liked. It's very visually stimulating without being overbearing. And Will Poulter's kind of intensity in that scene, where he's rattling off all of these crazy theories and crazy ideas of alternate timelines and everything, he has such an intensity to that delivery that it's really cool. Like, I really liked his performance in that scene. But like I said, it leads to him jumping off the balcony, and I don't know, it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, it's weird. It's like he jumps off, and then you leave, and you see the demon packs from the game and from the book, and then you wake up, I guess. I think, yeah, after that you wake up and it's like the next day. So it's kind of a way to get around it that's kind of like a dream sequence, but then he's not there at all, ever, like at all anymore. Colin's not in the movie anymore. And it's weird because, like I said, it doesn't lead anywhere. And then, the assistant gives you the documentary and stuff instead of, like, if you don't go down that path, he's still there and he gives you the documentary. And it's just, I don't know. I wish that there were more consequences to that. Like, it's not like he just suddenly jumped off the balcony and then he lives alone, so it's fine. Like, you were never there. But like, he has like a girlfriend and a kid there. Like, you would think that there would be ramifications to that, unless it's supposed to be that him waking up is him waking up into an alternate timeline where Colin just disappeared instead of jumped. But there's not enough communicated into in the movie to really make you think that. So I don't know. It's just weird. There's no follow through on that, and that was disappointing, at least not in any version of the movie that I watched. So the documentary that he's given, that Stefan's given, is that it talks about Jerome Davies killing his wife and decapitating her, and about how he was under the suspicion that she was slipping him psychedelic drugs, and that he was having these hallucinations, and that he was having these visions of the Pax demon haunting him, and that's what caused him to put the demon into the book. Which, all of that's cool, but again, like, the shortcoming of this entire endeavor is that you don't get a lot of context with that. Like, there's no follow through on that. Like, in different versions of the movie, you see visions of this Pax demon, but again, it doesn't, nothing comes of it. Is it just an apparition? Is it just something in your, that you're like, is a product of your imagination? Or is there something deeper that they just didn't have time to flesh out? Because we've got Jerome Davies having this psychotic break, and then that's supposed to mirror Stefan's psychotic break to kill his dad. And it's just, it doesn't fit. Like, when it got to the point where you're given the option to kill the dad, I didn't want to just as much as he didn't want to. Like, it's just, it felt like, it didn't feel earned. Like, and I don't know how they can make an interactive story where you have a character murder their dad and have it feel organic. I really don't. Unless they made it like manslaughter, like an accident. Like, instead of saying kill dad, like, maybe push dad and dad falls and he breaks his neck or something. And then that's giving you the choice of alert the authorities or bury the body or chop up the body, whatever. Like, it's just, like, something like that would have been more organic and really would have held my interest in the story. But instead we get just kill dad or kill or destroy, or don't kill dad and then come back and have to kill dad. So I don't know. It just felt like that was a little lacking to me. Some other kind of disparate things that one of the side plots that happen is if you follow Colin and do the drugs and talk to him and everything, and then you go to the scene where where Stefan is in his room and he's asking for us to give him a sign. If you check the white bear sign, I think that at that point that'll lead you to go into the office, where the dad's office. And like, this is a really interesting plot there. This is the part of the movie where I kind of want to go back and see where it leads, because I feel like I didn't get the full extent of it. But basically, that kind of plot thread that goes through that plot thread leads you to discover that I guess you're part of an experiment, and that they implanted the idea of the mother's death into your mind, and your dad's behind it, and then you have a scuffle with your dad, and then I think you kill your dad in the scene, but then you wake up and it's like it's a dream, and like it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything because it just resets and you have to make another choice. It's frustrating more than anything. It's frustrating, and it could be more interesting. And like, if you don't go through the path, I think if you don't follow Colin and you go and you instead of choosing Netflix, you choose the white bear symbol, you'll go in there and you'll have an option of either, because there's a password thing, and if by going through the Colin thing, the password is Pac, because he has that line about Pac-Man. But if you don't go through that, it gives you the option of either choosing the it either chooses the password as JFD, which are the initials of Jerome F. Davies, or Pax, which is the demon name. And if you, like, I chose JFD, and then it wasn't the correct password to open the safe to get the details about the experiment and everything, but it ended with him seeing like a vision of Jerome Davies scaring him, and then he wakes up and it resets. So I have to assume that if you choose Pax there, it just shows you a vision of Pax, the demon. And it's just like, when you get to those kind of dead ends, it's not fun. It's not that interesting. Yeah, so I don't know. There are certain points in the story where you can either go back or exit to credits. And I did for my second video, I was just like, okay, exit to credits. Because at that point I had, I think, I had gotten the access to the safe, and then I think I killed the dad, and then I had that's right. I had a scene where the doctor is telling me, like, flashes of memory of the doctor saying, like, if you need me, call me, you know the number. And I wasn't paying enough attention. I didn't know what the number was. And what I thought was interesting was that it shows flashes of her saying numbers and everything. And I should go back and check this out, because I think that it has to do with the way that she says, she gives him, I think she gives him the prescription, and she says, remember, one for all for one. So I wonder, is the number supposed to be 1441? But that's not enough numbers, because I think it's a 5-digit thing. And like, what number is all supposed to be? Like, 1 for all for one? Like, that's 6 numbers, so that's not enough, because it's 5. I'll have to Google that, I think. But anyway, it's, I thought that was clever if that's how it pans out, but I don't know. Yeah, so what I thought was cool was that, when you get to the actual end of the movie, there's a couple of options that I found, at least. Like, you're either caught for having killed your dad, and you're seeing the video game review on TV in jail, or you're telling the doctor that you're at peace and everything, and then it shows his dad in his dad's head in the room as he's working, and then cuts to in the future where we see what was it? It was something like a newscaster from like present day saying like, oh, this Bandersnatch thing, it's gonna be redone for a future. For a streaming platform and everything, and then it shows a programmer, presumably at Netflix. They don't say Netflix, but she's like programming the Bandersnatch movie, and she runs a test, and then it gives you the option of either destroying the computer or pouring tea over the computer. And it's just an interesting thing to kind of end on, where you can see she's not sure why she's doing what she's doing, but she does it anyway, and then it cuts to credits. So yeah, I think I rambled through as much as I can about this. I'm sure I'm forgetting other things. I really wish I would have explored that timeline where you see that your dad is kind of behind everything. Yeah, and I kind of wish that it was more substantial, or more I don't know, more substantial to each other, because like in that timeline, it's like, okay, you've discovered that your dad has this secret safe with all these files and everything about you, and that everything has been just an experiment that you're a part of and everything. But if you go back and like, that's not developed properly in the movie, at least not to my taste. Like, when I go back and watch it again, I'm not thinking like, oh, this line of dialogue is leading me down this path to make me think of this. Now I'm suspicious of the dad. It's like, it's just more like, oh shit, dad's responsible for this. That's crazy. It's not, I don't know, it just didn't flow that well from a narrative sense. Like, as clean as the actual options for the choices that you make were, because it's really nice. It just pops up on the screen and you have like 10 seconds to make a decision, and it's pretty seamless, but narratively it doesn't follow through as coherently and as smoothly as I would have liked. So yeah, I think that will do it for my review of Bandersnatch. I wish I would have had Tiny on here to talk about it, but it's fine. I'm used to being alone on here. Let me know what you guys thought of Bandersnatch. Again, and if you have Letterboxd and you want a pro membership, first one that sends me an email at matt@obsessiveviewer.com will get a pro membership to Letterboxd, which is a year pro membership. It lets you get stats if you log your movies and stuff. It's really cool. So anyway, do that at matt@obsessiveviewer.com, and let me know what you thought of Bandersnatch, and if you think that they should do more things like that with Black Mirror. Like, do you think that this is a worthy narrative structure for your liking, or would you rather just have more Black Mirror episodes traditionally done, and that this was just an experiment and nothing else? Let me know, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Next up on the main feed is Penny for Your Thoughts, which should be going up like a day or a few hours after this episode. Penny for Your Thoughts. It's a fun little episode. And then, after that, I'm going to do 22, and then we're going to go into our Twilight Zone 2019 review series, bonus review series. So I'm so excited for that show. I really can't wait. It's going to be on CBS All Access. Can't wait to see it. Yeah, and if you like what you heard, my rambling and incoherent thoughts on Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, feel free to donate to the podcast at anthologypod.com/donate. Or become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for recurring monthly donations, and that'll give you access to a special RSS feed that has exclusive content recorded specifically for Patreon supporters, just more like rambling stuff. So do all that, and most of all, follow me on on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod, because it's funny, because like I know how many people listen to the show, and I know how many followers I have on Twitter, and there's a pretty big gap between them. So if you're on Twitter, follow me at OVAnthologyPod. Having said all that, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Anthology is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to anthologypod.com/archive. You can also like the Facebook page at facebook.com/anthologypod and follow the show on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at anthologypod.com/donate or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. Official Anthology merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, can be found in the Obsessive Viewers TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at anthologypod.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at tpublic.com. For information about the Obsessive Viewers annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at obsessiveviewer.com, and on Twitter at obsessiveviewer. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and co-host Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, over at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Bumper music for this podcast comes courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. You can also find As Good As It Gets music on Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.